nor eat, nor smell. But it will be from hence that thou shalt seek the Lord thy God. Thou shalt find him, if thou seek him with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all that art in tribulation, and all these things are come upon thee, even in the latter days, if thou turn to the Lord thy God, and shalt be obedient unto his voice. For the Lord thy God is a merciful God, and he will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers, which he sware unto them. For ask now of the days that are present, which are before thee, since the day that God created man upon the earth, and ask from one side of heaven unto the other, whether there have been any such thing as this great thing is, or hath been heard like it. Did ever people hear the voice of God speaking out of the midst of the fire, as thou hast heard and lived? Or hath God essayed to go and take him a nation from the midst of another nation by temptations, by signs, and by wonders, and by war, and by a mighty hand, and by a stretched out arm, and by great terrors, according to all that the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? Unto thee it was showed that thou mightst know that the Lord, he is God. There is none else besides him. Out of heaven he made thee to hear his voice, that he might instruct thee. And upon earth he showed thee his great fire, and thou hearest his words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved thy fathers, therefore he chose their seed and after them, and brought thee out of his sight with his mighty power out of Egypt, to drive out nations from before thee, greater and mightier than thou art, to bring them in, and to give thee their land for an inheritance, as it is this day. Know therefore this day, and consider it in thine heart, that the Lord, he is God, in heaven above, and upon the earth beneath. There is none else. Thou shalt keep therefore his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee this day, that it will go well with thee and with thy children after thee, and that thou mayest prolong thy days upon the earth which the Lord thy God giveth thee forever. Then Moses severed 3 cities on his side, Jordan toward the sun rising, that the slayer might flee thither, which should kill his neighbor unawareness, and hated him not in times past, and that fleeing into one of these cities he might live, namely Bishur in the wilderness, in the plain country of the Reubenites, and Ramoth, the Gilead of the Gileadites, and Golan in the Bashan of the Messianites. And that is the law which Moses set before the children of Israel. These are the testimonies of the statutes and the judgments which Moses spake unto the children of Israel after they came forth out of Egypt. On this side Jordan, in the valley over Beth Peor, in the land of Sihon, king of Amorites, who dwelt at Heshbon, whom Moses and the children of Israel smote after they had come forth out of Egypt. And they possessed his land in the land of Og, king of Bashan, 2 kings of Amorites, which were on the side of Jordan toward the sun rising, from Aori, which is by the bank of the river Arnon, even unto the Mount Sion, which is Hermon, and all the plain on this side Jordan eastward, even into the sea of the plain, unto the springs of Pisgah. Chapter 5. And Moses called all Israel, and said unto them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments which I speak in your ears this day, that you may learn them, and keep and do them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. The Lord made not this covenant with our fathers, but with us, even us, who are all of us here alive this day. The Lord talked with you face to face in the mount out of the midst of the fire. I stood between the Lord and you at that time to show you the word of the Lord. For you were afraid by reason of the fire, and went not up into the mount, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. Thou shalt have none other gods before me. Thou shalt not make thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them, nor serve them, for I am the Lord thy God, a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and upon the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy maidservant, or thy maidservant, nor thine ass, nor any other thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy maidservant or manservant may rest as well as thou. And remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy God brought thee out of thence through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord thy God commanded thee to keep the Sabbath day. Honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God has commanded thee, and that thy days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, neither shalt thou commit adultery, neither shalt thou steal, neither shalt thou bear false witness against thy neighbor, neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his field, his manservant, his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's. These words the Lord spoke unto all your assembly in the mount of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the darkness, and with a great voice, and he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone, and delivered them unto me. And it came to pass, when ye heard the voice out of the midst of the darkness, for the mountain did burn with fire, that ye came near unto me, and even all the heads of your tribes and your elders. And ye said, Behold, the Lord out of our God has showed us his glory and his greatness, and we have heard his voice out of the midst of the fire. We have seen this day that God doth talk with man, and that he liveth. Now therefore why should we die? For this great fire which consumes us, we hear the voice of the Lord our God any more than we shall die. For who is there of all flesh that hath hear the voice of the living God speaking out of the midst of the fire, as we have, and live? Go thou near, and hear all the Lord our God shall say, and speak thou unto us all the Lord our God shall speak unto thee, and we shall hear it and do it. And the Lord heard the voice of your words when you spake unto me, and the Lord said unto me, I have heard the voice of the words of this people which they have spoken unto thee. They have well said all that they have spoken. Oh, that there was such a heart in them, that they would fear me and keep all my commandments always, that is, might be well with them and with their children forever. Go say to them, Get you into your tents again. But as for thee, stand thou here by me, and I will speak unto thee all the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which thou shalt teach them, that they may do them in the land which I give them to possess it. You shall observe to do, therefore, as the Lord your God hath commanded you. You shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. You shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God hath commanded you, that you may live, and that you may be well with you, and that you may be prolong your days in the land which you shall possess. Chapter 6. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which the Lord your God commanded you to teach, that you might do them in the land whither you go to possess it, that thou mightst fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments which I command thee, thou and thy son, and thy son's son, all the days of thy life, and that thy days may be prolonged. Hear thee, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with thee, and that ye may increase mightily, as the Lord God of thy fathers hath promised thee, in the land that floweth with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thy heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and thou shalt be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. And it shall be, when the Lord thy God shall have brought thee into the land which he sweareth unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give these great and goodly cities which thou buildest not, and houses full of all good things which thou fillest not, and wells digged which thou diggest not, vineyards and olive trees which thou plantest not, when thou shalt have eaten and be full. Then beware lest thou forget the Lord which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. Thou shalt fear the Lord thy God, and serve him, and shalt swear by his name. Ye shall go not go after the other gods of the people which are round about you. For the Lord thy God is a jealous God among you, lest the anger of the Lord thy God be kindled against thee, and destroy thee from off the face of the earth. Ye shall not tempt the Lord your God as you tempted him in Massah. Ye shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God, and his testimonies and his statutes which he hath commanded thee. Thou shalt not do that which is right, and thou shalt do that which is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest go in and possess the good land which the Lord share with thy fathers, to cast out all thine enemies from before thee, as the Lord hath spoken. And when thy son ask thee and thine to come, saying, What mean the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments which the Lord our God hath commanded you? Then thou shalt say unto thy son, We were Pharaoh's bondsmen in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And the Lord showed signs and wonders great and sore upon Egypt, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household before our eyes. And he brought us out from thence, and he might bring us in, to give us the land which he sware unto our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God for our good always, and that he might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before the Lord our God, as he has commanded us. Chapter 7. When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, hast cast out many nations before thee, and the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mighty than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show no mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall you deal with them. You shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, burn their graven images with fire. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because you were more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of all people, but because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, and repayeth them that hate him to their face, and destroy them. He that not be slack to him that hateth him, he will repay him to his face. Thou shalt therefore keep the commandments of the statutes of the judgments which I command thee this day, to do them. Wherefore it shall come to pass, if you hearken to these judgments, and keep and do them, that the Lord thy God shall keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he shareth unto thy fathers. And he will love thee, and bless thee, and multiply thee. He will also bless the fruit of thy womb, and the fruit of thy land, thy corn, and thy wine, thy oil, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep, and the land which he swore unto thee, unto thy fathers, to keep thee. Thou shalt be blessed above all people. There shall not be a male or female barren among you, or among your cattle. And the Lord will take away from thee all sickness, and will put none of the evil diseases of Egypt which thou knowest upon thee, but will lay them upon all them that hate thee. And that thou shalt consume all the people with which the Lord thy God shall deliver thee. Thine eye shall have no pity upon them, neither shalt thou serve their gods, for they will be a snare unto thee. If thou shalt say in thine heart, These nations are more than I, how can I dispossess them? Thou shalt not be afraid of them, but shalt well remember what the Lord thy God did unto Pharaoh and unto all of Egypt, the great temptations which thine eyes saw, and the signs, and the wonders, and the mighty hand, and the stretched out arm, whereby the Lord thy God brought thee out. So shall the Lord thy God do unto all the people of whom thou art afraid. Moreover, the Lord thy God will send the hornet among them until they are left and hid themselves from thee, be destroyed. And thou shalt not be affrighted at them. For the Lord thy God is among you, a mighty God and terrible, and the Lord thy God will put out those nations before thee by little and little. Thou mayest not consume them at once, lest the beasts of the field increase upon them. But the Lord thy God shall deliver them unto thee, and shall destroy them with a mighty destruction until they be destroyed. And he shall deliver their kings into thine hand, and thou shalt destroy their name from under heaven. There shall no man be able to stand before thee until thou have destroyed them. The graven images of their gods shall ye burn with fire. They shall not desire the silver or the gold that is on them, nor take unto thee, lest thou be snared within, for it is an abomination to the Lord thy God. Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house, lest thou be a cursed thing like it, but thou shalt utterly detest it, and thou shalt utterly abhor it, for it is a cursed thing. Chapter 8. All the commandments which I have commanded thee this day shall thou observe to do, that ye may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee 40 years into the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldst keep his commandments or no. And he humbled thee, and he suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee from manna which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Thy remnant waxeth not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. Thou shalt not consider in thine heart that as a man chasten his son, so the Lord thy God chasten thee. Therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to fear him. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of the valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees, pomegranates, a land of oil, olive oil and honey, a land where thou shalt eat bread without scarceness, and thou shalt not lack anything in it, a land whose stones are iron, and out of those whose hills they mayest dig brass. When thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he hath given thee. Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God in not keeping his commandments, and his judgments, and his statutes, which I have commanded thee this day. Lest when thou hast eaten and art full, and hast built godly houses and dwelt therein, and when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thou hast is multiplied, then thine heart be lifted up, and thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, who led thee through the great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions, and drought, where there was no water, who brought thee forth water out of the rock of flint, who fed thee in the wilderness, with manna which thy fathers knew not, that he might humble thee, and that he might prove thee to do thee good at that latter end. And that thou say in thine heart, my power and the might of mine hand hath gotten me this wealth. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that has given thee power to good wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he sware unto thy fathers as it is this day. That it shall be that if thou do in all forget the Lord thy God, and walk after other gods, and serve them and worship them, I testify against you this day that ye shall surely perish. As the nations which the God destroyeth before your face, so shall you perish, because you would not be obedient unto the voice of the Lord your God. Chapter 9. Hear, O Israel, thou art to pass over Jordan this day, to go and to possess great nations, greater and mightier than thyself, cities great and fenced up to heaven, a people great and tall, the children of the Anakim, whom thou knowest, and of whom thou hast heard, say, who can stand before the children of Anak? Understand therefore this day that the Lord thy God is he which goeth over before thee as a consuming fire. He shall destroy them, and he shall bring them down before thy face. So shalt thou drive them out, and destroy them quickly, as the Lord hath said unto thee. speak not that thou in thy heart after that the Lord thy God has cast them out from before thee, saying, For my righteousness the Lord hath brought me in to possess this land. But for the wickedness of these nations the Lord doth drive them out from before thee. Not for thy righteousness, but for the unrighteousness of thine heart dost thou go to possess their land. But for the wickedness of these nations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee, and that he may perform the word which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Understand, therefore, that the Lord thy God giveth thee not this good land to possess, if for thy righteousness, for thou art a stiff-necked people. Remember and forget not that thou provokest the Lord thy God to wrath in the wilderness, from the day that thou didst depart from the land of Egypt until you came into this place. You have been rebellious against the Lord. Also in Horeb ye provoked the Lord to wrath, so that the Lord was angry with you, and have destroyed you. And I was gone up into the mount to receive the tablets of stone, even the tablets of the covenant which the Lord made with you. Then I abode in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. I neither did eat bread nor drink water. And the Lord delivered unto me 2 tablets of stone, written with the finger of God, and on them was written according to all the words which the Lord spake, and you in the mountain on the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. It came to pass at the end of 40 days and 40 nights that the Lord gave me the 2 tablets of stone, even the tablets of the covenant. Thank you. And the Lord said unto me, Arise, get thee down from hence, for thy people which thou hast brought out of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They are quickly turned aside out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten image. Furthermore, the Lord spoke unto me, saying, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Let me alone, that I may destroy them, and blot out their name from under heaven, and I will make of thee a nation mightier and greater than they. So I turned and came down from the mount, and the mount burned with fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my 2 hands. And I looked, and behold, you sinned against the Lord your God, and had made you a molten calf. You had turned aside quickly out of the way which the Lord had commanded you. And I took the 2 tablets, and cast them out of my 2 hands, and brake them before your eyes. And I fell down before the Lord, as at the first 40 days and 40 nights. I did neither eat bread nor drink water, because of all your sins which you sinned in doing wickedly in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. For I was afraid of the anger and of the hot displeasure, wherefore the Lord was wrought against you, and to destroy you. But the Lord hearkened unto me at that time also. And the Lord was very angry with Aaron, to have destroyed him. And I prayed for Aaron also the same time. And I took your sin and the calf which you had made, and burned it with fire, and stamped it, and ground it in very small, even until it was as small as dust. And I cast the dust therefore into the brook, and then descended out of the mount. And at Tablarah, and at Meshah, and at Kilbarah, Habatoth, ye provoked the Lord to wrath. Likewise, when the Lord sent you from Kabashbarah, saying, Go up and possess the land which I have given you, then you rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God, and you believed him not, nor hearkened to his voice. You have been rebellious against the Lord from the day that I knew you. Thus I fell down before the Lord 40 days and 40 nights, as I fell down at the first, because the Lord had said to me he would destroy you. And I prayed therefore unto the Lord, and he said, O God, destroy not thy people and thine inheritance, which thou hast redeemed, through thy greatness which thou hast brought forth out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Remember thy servants Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Look not into the stubbornness of his people, nor to their wickedness, nor to their sin, lest the land which thou hast brought us out of say, because the Lord was not able to bring them into the land which he promised them, and because he hated them, he hath brought them out to slay them in the wilderness. Yet they are thy people, and thine inheritance, which thou broughtest out from thy mighty power, and by thy stretched out hand. Chapter 10. At that time the Lord said unto me, Hew out 2 tablets of stone, hew thee out 2 tablets of stone like unto the first, and come up unto me into the mount, and make thee an ark of wood, I will write on the tablets the words that were first on the first tablets which thou breakest, and thou shalt put them in the ark. And I made an ark of shittim wood, and hewed 2 tablets of stone like unto the first, and went up into the mount, having the 2 tablets in my hand. And he wrote on the tablets, according to the first writing, the 10 commandments, which the Lord spake unto you in the mount in the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly, and the Lord gave them to me. Then I turned myself and came down from the mountain, and put the tablets in the ark which I had made, and there they be as the Lord commanded me. And the children of Israel took their journey from Beershah of the children of the Jachin to Morshah. These Aaron died, and there he was buried, and Eleazar his son ministered in the priest's office in his stead. From thence they journeyed unto Gudgohah, and Gudgohah to Johath, a land of rivers of water. And at that time the Lord separated the tribe of Levi to bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, to stand before the Lord, to minister unto him, and to bless in his name unto this day. Wherefore Levi hath no part nor inheritance from his brethren, the Lord in his inheritance, according as the Lord thy God promised him. And I stayed in the mount according to the first time 40 days and 40 nights, and the Lord hearkened unto me at that time also, and the Lord would not destroy thee. And the Lord said unto me, Arise, take thy journey before the people, that they may go in and possess the land which I swear unto their fathers to give unto them. And now, Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee? But to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord, and his statutes which I command thee this day, and for thy good. Behold, the heaven and the heavens of heavens is the Lord's thy God, and the earth also, with all that therein is. Only the Lord had a delight in thy fathers to love them, and he chose their seed after them, even you above all people, as it is this day. Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be not more stiff-necked. For the Lord your God is God of gods, and the Lord of lords, a great God, a mighty and a terrible, which regardeth not persons, nor taketh reward. He doth execute his judgment on the fatherless and the widow, and loveth the stranger, in giving him food and raiment. Love ye therefore the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Thou shalt fear the Lord thy God, him shalt thou serve, and to him shalt thou cleave, and swear by his name. He is thy praise, and he is thy God, that hath done for thee these great and terrible things which thine eyes have seen. Thy fathers went down to Egypt with 70 persons, and now the Lord thy God hath made thee as the stars of heaven for multitude. Chapter 11. Therefore thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and keep his charge, and his statutes, and his judgments, and his commandments always. And know ye this day, for I speak not with your children, which have not known, and which have not seen the chastisement of the Lord your God, his greatness, his mighty hand, and his stretched out arm, and his miracles, and his acts which he did in the midst of Egypt, unto Pharaoh the king of Egypt, and unto all the land. And when he did unto the army of Egypt, and to their horses, and to their chariots, how he made the water of the Red Sea to overflow them, as they pursued after you, and how the Lord hath destroyed them unto this day. And what he did unto you in the wilderness, until you came to this place, and what he did unto Dathan and Amram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben, and how the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their household, and their tents, and all the substance that was in their possession, in the midst of all Israel. But your eyes have seen all the great acts of the Lord which he did. Therefore shall you keep all the commandments which I command you this day, that you may be strong, and go in and possess the land. Another 10 minutes, I guess. And go in and possess the land, whither you go to possess it, and that you may prolong your days in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give unto them and to their seed, a land that floweth with milk and honey. For the land whither thou goest in to possess it, and it not is the land of Egypt, from whence you came out, where thou sowest thy seed, and watereth it with thy foot, as a gardener of herbs. But the land whither you go to possess, it is a land of hills and valleys, and drinketh water of the rain of heaven, a land which the Lord thy God careth for. The eyes of the Lord thy God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year. And it shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart, with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that shall mayest gather in thy corn, and in thy wine, and in thy oil. And I will send grass in thy fields for thy cattle, that thou mayest eat and be full. Take heed to yourself that your heart be not deceived, and ye turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. And then the Lord's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up the heavens, that there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, and lest ye perish quickly from off the good land which the Lord giveth you. Therefore shall you lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as a frontlet between your eyes. And you shall teach them to your children, speaking of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou raisest up. And thou shalt write them upon the doorpost of thine house and upon thy gates, that your days may be multiplied in the days of your children in the land which the Lord share unto your fathers, to give them as the days of heaven upon the earth. For if you shall diligently keep all these commandments which I command you to do them, to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, and to cleave unto him, then will the Lord drive out all these nations before you. You shall possess greater nations, and mightier than yourself. Every place whereon the soles of your feet shall tend shall be yours, from the wilderness in Lebanon, from the river and the river Euphrates, even unto the uttermost seas shall your coast be. There shall be no